This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains, Westchester. And here now the headlines for the White Plains Week of February 11th, 2021. The week of the Big Chill and beginning of President's Week with Lincoln's birthday Friday, concluding with Washington's birthday February 22nd. It was 16 degrees Monday morning with a fresh 6 inches of snow on a frosty morning. And on Monday evening, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Joseph Ricca, delivered the school's instruction budget in a big surprise. But there were no increases, no numbers, and no impacts given on the budget. A provocative first. The 22-page presentation was a strategic plan on instruction with an acknowledgement that explained, quote, "It is a part of a larger discussion related to the creation of and presentation of the 2021-22 preliminary school budget. Detailed information related to projected cost will be reviewed during the superintendent's preliminary budget March 8. In every part of the 22-page presentation plans presented with the caveat existing budget, no increases. It is an unprecedented shocker of the week, and you can see the entire presentation on the educational channel. And why is that? Because the U.S. Senate has started the impeachment trial of a president on President's Week, and being unable to multitask when most needed, the Senate is looking at the past instead of the future needs of the states right now. Money, a lot of it. They are laying a long, big egg with little chance of the president being convicted and barred from office as they wish, and they are sowing seeds of stalemate. They are doing little about pushing an aid to the state's financial package and the gazillions to replace revenues lost to the COVID epidemic. Perhaps they will announce something this weekend or next week. Meanwhile, New York State has 47 days, as we are taping this program on February 11th, 47 days to pass the state budget. Otherwise, the governor has said he will be forced to slash the aid to schools and states. School districts and counties have no idea right now, hence the idea of the big chill, of the cuts Governor Cuomo may have to hand down in vastly diminished state aid to schools, cities, counties, and towns. Hence, Dr. Joseph Ricca, the school superintendent, saying he was keeping the budget where it is. He and other superintendents across the county and state have no idea of how much they'll have to raise property taxes. Meanwhile, Westchester County is grappling with the coronavirus, and it continues, and it is far from over. But County Executive George Latimer gave positive news Monday in his briefing. Here's what he said.
The 8,416 active cases shows a continuing decline. It's a small, steady decline that's happened now over the last two and a half weeks since we cleared the 2-week period of time after the January 1st New Year's Day or New Year's Eve period of time. We saw spikes at Thanksgiving, spike at Christmas, and then Christmas going right into New Year's Eve. And even though we didn't have the ball drop either Times Square or here at Renaissance Plaza in downtown White Plains, people did get together in social settings, and in those social settings the virus did in fact advance. We know that we are dealing with a more communicable version of the disease and the UK variant that is now with us, and we're hearing about other variants. Certainly I'm not capable of being able to describe what makes one element of the virus different or more communicable than another, but we do know that that is part of the race on one side of the coin, which is the speed with which the infection circulates. With 8,416 active cases, that compares favorably. A week before, we were at 10,278 cases, so that's welcome that we have 1,800 less active cases today than we had a week ago today. And if you go back 2 weeks ago, that number was 11,494, almost at 11,500 cases, and almost exactly 3,000 less cases in the aggregate in the last 2 weeks. We consider that very good news. The number was even higher than that 3 weeks ago at 11,600. That was the peak that we had seen of active cases back when the pandemic began. In March and April of last year, we had numbers that reached 12,000 active cases, and then it dipped down to a very low number, a few hundred. And then it started to spike back up again starting in October, late October, through the holiday season, getting as high as the number that we had 2 weeks ago to the 11,658. So we're encouraged that that number has dropped down to 8,416. We hope that that active case number continues to drop, and we see it take ourselves lower and lower, which would be good news.
Here now are the coronavirus numbers looked at for the last 7 days. From February 3rd to February 9th, Westchester suffered 3,667 new persons getting infected, an encouraging average of 5%, a new positive over 7 days this week. But for the last 2 weeks, the numbers of new infections could result in 220 hospitalizations at the 5% hospitalization rate by Valentine's Day, 220 by Valentine's Day, and 183 infections at the 5% rate by President's Day, the 22nd. And coming up are the socializations of eating out for the upcoming week of romance and a week of schools on vacation and the 3-day weekend next week. This is a period of 7 days coming up, fraught with danger for a public that wants to so get back to normal, but you can't risk it. In that same briefing on Monday, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins announced 3 new temporary vaccination centers being established by Governor Cuomo.
There were 3 pop-up locations in Westchester County last week, one in Mount Vernon, one in Peekskill, and one in the city of Yonkers. We certainly want to thank the governor and for all of the work that's been done. County Executive LATIMER, all of the state legislative delegation, your assembly person, your senator, have all been actively lobbying to try to get more locations across the neighborhoods, across the communities, to be able to address specific targeted places, especially where the infections are high. And they had a zone previously to be able to vaccinate as many people as possible. The county is not responsible for these pop-ups at all. As the county executive outlined previously, the New York State is 100% in control over those particular locations. They work with the local municipalities, again, because the county executive's leadership in making sure the municipalities and folks are involved from a conversation perspective to at least identify the places. And they are a way of targeting specific groups.
Here is just how widespread Westchester is. Here is a Mount Vernon resident being vaccinated as part of Governor Cuomo's emergency vaccination effort just opened. And here is how Westchester's most COVID-ridden cities and towns have been doing for the last 2 weeks, sorry. Yonkers is where the disease has been growing and growing each week, and nobody seems to be paying attention to it except Governor CUOMO. 2,150 active cases in Yonkers over the last 2 weeks, growing at 59 new infections a day. And since Westchester has not moved to do something about the spreads in Yonkers, the governor has. New Rochelle second at 803 infections, 66 a day, and Mount Vernon 650, 50 a day. White Plains 457 active cases, growing at 15 a day. Peekskill is number 9, ahead of Tarrytown. Westchester leads all counties in new infections in the mid-Hudson region, a dubious distinction. Remember how we used to come down hard on Rockland County and other environs north of here? Well, they're in the clear these days. Westchester leads all counties in new infections in the mid-Hudson region with 3,601, with a 5.56% positive infection rate 2 days ago. The buzz in White Plains is a clamor of parents for White Plains schools to reopen, all 9 schools to get back to normal. Dr. Joseph Ricca, in a 35-minute address to the school district Monday, outlined issues in a question and answer session. Here's what you need to know tonight about reopening from the superintendent of schools.
So in order for White Plains and any school district, as far as I know, to be able to bring every single child back, that means we have to move away from the 6-foot physical distance that we have been observing all year. Once we are vaccinated, once our faculty and staff members are vaccinated, we know that that's the direction that we're going to need to move into in order to bring all of our children back in. You're absolutely right. From a square footage standpoint, you can't do it. You need to relax or shift that 6-foot requirement that we have in place, and that's going to happen. It's going to have to happen, but not until we've finished the vaccination cycle in our school district. And I'll say more about vaccinations in questions to come. About 1,250 employees. We are moving as fast as we possibly can. We have many in our district who've already received their second shot, and every day we're getting closer to that. We're also working alongside our partners at the county and the state to try and identify ways that we can get vaccines to school district employees even faster and in a more targeted way. So while I can't specifically speak to any school district wanting 100% by the end of this month, I can tell you we're looking to get to 70, 75, 80% as quickly as possible. We think 80% is a really good number. I don't know that 100% is even feasible because there are going to be folks who can't get the vaccine for various health-related reasons. Let's remember, and even when we're back in person, full-time, with all of the children vaccinated, unless there's a change, all right, a big change to contact tracing and quarantining, we will still be dealing with COVID-19 issues, and we'll likely be dealing with them on a larger scale because there will be more people. We'll do everything we possibly can to continue to make sure that all of our health safety standards are in place, but we have to remember that when we are back full, even after vaccination of adults, there's still going to be contact tracing that takes place and potentially disruptions to in-person learning. I know that's not welcome news, but certainly that's something that we need to keep in mind, absent really dramatic changes in the contact tracing guidelines, which I don't foresee coming until we have more of a critical mass of vaccinated members of the entire community, not just certain segments of the community. Asymptomatic transmission is a driving factor behind the spread of COVID. The district does not require testing after being quarantined, so how are we gathering data to disprove our health and safety measures are working or need to be changed? That's a great question. Thank you very much. Folks are not required to be tested after quarantine. The way in which we're determining that our health safety standards are working is that we do not see community spread within our facilities. We've been operating this way for the entire academic year, and while we have had incidences where it may have been that folks have spread it to each other in school, we can isolate those to incidences when folks also let down their guard and they weren't necessarily following the health safety standards that we have in place. Otherwise, most of, if not all, of the cases that we've been seeing have been coming to us from outside, somewhere else, typically from some type of sort of living room spread scenario. Our members in our community have been doing a really tremendous job. I know everyone's been working hard to limit community spread and to stay home when we're not feeling well. That's how we know that the standards that we have in place have been working. We've also seen a dramatic decline in flu. We've seen a dramatic decline in strep throat, conjunctivitis, you name it. Communicable diseases that are typically prevalent in school-aged children have been on the decline, and that has a lot to do, obviously, with hybrid learning, but also with the health safety standards that are in place.
Parents aren't the only ones clamoring for reopening. White Plains restaurants and business want to do it too. Here is Stuart Levine of Levino on Mamaroneck Avenue on how he has adjusted to the coronavirus grip on White Plains. This is John Bailey, and I'm with Stuart Levine, proprietor of Levino on Mamaroneck Avenue in White Plains, New York. He's been in business at Levino in this space for 6 years, and prior to that, 10 previous years. And in this competitive wine market on Mamaroneck Avenue, what adjustments to what do you owe your survival?
Well, when we first moved 6 years ago, you know, we saw a little bit of a jump from moving from the side street over onto the avenue, which was great. Obviously, when 2020 came around, we ran into the pandemic, which overall helped business from a sales standpoint on the wine and spirits end. But obviously, all the surrounding businesses were either shut down or extremely limited in what they could do. The street was empty. We couldn't do any events. So we really had to concentrate more on our delivery and our getting stuff to the customer without them having to come into the store.
Right. And what should other White Plains merchants do to adjust to recover in the months ahead?
You know, it's really hard to answer that question because every store is different. Every merchant is different. What a restaurant needs to do these days is completely different than what a wine shop has to do with what an art supply store has to do. So it's really individual. I think obviously people are going to continue to want the delivery aspect, the curbside pickup aspect, less contact with a lot of people. That is going to continue.
Yeah. You are an excellent promoter. Has business declined, and how have you kept it going with promotion?
Well, thank you. You know, promotions are always something that you have to be careful about because I try to think of myself as a consumer when I do things as opposed to just a business owner. How do I want to be attracted to a store? How do I want to be marketed to? I automatically delete emails and posts that I'm getting inundated with daily offers. So I try to slow that down a bit, do more Facebook posts, emails that target specific events, sales, or something going on that really helps the consumer want to come here and not want them to delete the emails because they're getting inundated with things they don't need.
Yeah, do you keep track of customer tastes and gear, sort of like we used to do in direct mail years ago to specific buyers of specific vintages?
Well, it's hard to do that sometimes because, especially this last year, we've changed more from quality to quantity. We still have the people looking for specific items, but a lot of people were ordering more bulk in their home deliveries. And you would see a combination of things that you didn't see before from their buying habits. So it's really hard to target those specific things. But we have always had customer retention programs, customer loyalty programs where we know what customers have bought. So I know my customers. So when they come in, I know what they've bought, and I can help steer them to other things they may enjoy because of that.
Right. Was the restaurant month just over and the holiday market in December successful for the bid with you merchants and businesses?
For myself,
Yeah.
The restaurant month itself doesn't do a lot for me because I am not
Yeah.
part of that stream. If anything, it probably slowed down a little bit, people eating at home as much as they were. I did see a lot of people out at the restaurants, so I do think that there was a success for them.
What does the downtown need to do to come back strong in the next 4 or 5 months?
You know, that's a very tough question because going back to before where every business has their own set of challenges these days. The White Plains bid has done a lot to really help business and support business. A lot of virtual events where they couldn't do live events before. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for businesses to take advantage of that. They should really contact the bid about that because I've done some virtual events with them and I do find them to be helpful. In addition, I think it's just going to be a wait and see attitude as to how the track of this virus goes, how the reopenings go. We have some new restaurants it looks like are going to actually open as opposed to close. So I'm hoping that that is a trend we can see. We also have a lot of people moving in to White Plains, moving out of New York City. New buildings going up, so we think that's going to attract new people. It might be another year or so before we see people moving into the new buildings, but that's something to look forward to and something that businesses can market to, and I think will allow for a growth of business again downtown once we have more consumers living in the heart of downtown.
White Plains caught up with BRITTANY BRANDWEIN, Executive Director of the White Plains Downtown Business Improvement District, on plans ahead. Here is a brief clip from what Ms. Brandwein told me about reopening.
We really wanted to do something to support our local businesses this year in White Plains, more so than ever, as they need it. Winter is tough to begin with, so we created a Winter Outlook series, as you mentioned, that started with a restaurant month in January, and now we are in Fitness February, supporting the different boutiques and gyms in downtown White Plains. Believe it or not, we have about 17 in the core of downtown White Plains in the bid district, all offering something for different levels of fitness. Also incorporated, because these businesses have all had to stay creative and innovative to stay alive. There's virtual classes being offered by many of them. So we encourage you to check it out and support your local businesses and get fit and healthy at the same time.
You get a lot of discounts too to try them. And,
Absolutely.
It's something for everybody. And what's great is that the 17 have stayed in business. How were they able to do that?
As I mentioned before, innovation has been key. And although it's been said in studies that through the pandemic, productivity has increased, but innovation has been limited, we at the bid have tried to turn that on its head. And so have our businesses who have taken the lead in that. Those who have survived have, shifted their business model so that they can provide for their community within this climate of the regulations brought on by New York State.
Now, restaurant month has just finished. How did that go? Was it a success in your estimation?
The feedback that we've gotten from both the community and our restaurants has been overwhelmingly positive, which we could not be more overjoyed about. We originally were approached to do this hyper-local restaurant month in January of last year, when pre-pandemic, when we couldn't have anticipated what was going to happen. And so when we learned about COVID and saw the impact that it has had on our restaurants and the hospitality industry, we extended it a full month and also extended it to have takeout options as well. So there was that flexibility for consumers who weren't comfortable dining in, but also the option to dine in within the New York State regulations. And all of the responses so far have been positive. They are still rolling in. Many of the businesses said that their January was busier than their December, whereas December is traditionally one of their busiest months. And Unfortunately, this year, because of, lack of holiday parties and things like that, I didn't see it.
In other developments, the White Plains City Assessor Lloyd Tash told WPCNR there has been an increase in certiorari filings this year. This is not good, but not unexpected. He says that coronavirus definitely has played a role in commercial filings, and residential values have been completely unaffected, Mr. Tash said. Mr. Tash told me there will most likely be a relatively small decrease in the 2021 assessment roll, which will come out March the 1st. WPCNR interprets this to mean that the city and the school district are not getting an injection of cash from what has been described ebulliently by realtors as a hot White Plains real estate market. Should mean prices are going up, right? Maybe not as much as we expected. And the cities do need help with their budgeting. Are you going out tonight? White Plains Week cautions you to observe masking, wear 2 masks, and practice appropriate social distancing. No kissing, for example, on Valentine's Day weekend, and really be careful getting together school kids on school vacation. A giant in White Plains education died this week. Saul YANOFSKY died. He was assistant superintendent of schools from 1982 and was appointed school superintendent in 1990 and served for 12 years before leaving in 2001. He is credited with developing ethnic balance in the White Plains elementary schools, school by school, in a model program that was imitated across the nation and was the first superintendent to grapple and develop preparations for student body adjusting to state assessments in the late 1990s. Mr. YANOFSKY was a calm and achieving leader who was widely respected in the community. Saul YANOFSKY, dead at 79, who moved White Plains from 1950s education into 21st century education. This is John Bailey saying good night, Jim Benaroff, and good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.